Adorable dog. I see that dog in the comment section. Adorable dog. Adorable dog alert. Adorable dog alert. Mine was just running like crazy around and I had to get him contained. All right, put your thinking caps on here, guys, because we are going to have to do a little bit of a hearkening back to book club here today. Probably going to say something that's going to upset a lot of people simply because you can't say this thing out loud, even though it is textbook international relations theory. All right, let's get the ball rolling. All right, folks. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and to follow us far and wide. Share them far and wide. We're on everything, but of course, the best place to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, which is right there. No, it's not. peoplespundit.locals.com. The gram. The gram is pinned to the Twitter feed. If I don't get more Instagram followers soon, my kids are going to mock the hell out of me. Oh, big bad dad, social media guy, can't even get 1,000 followers on Instagram. This is ridiculous. Let's get going. All right. I'm not kidding. Man, so do me a favor and share that. Oh, it is up. It's right there. peoplespundit.locals.com. It's because it's not there like that. There we go. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. I mean, I could put it up. We could all take a look at Predictit and Kalshi and everywhere else. It took the markets some time to catch up to the odds they had on the individual races. So I guess for a while, and you know how I am with betting market odds being predictive, the fact is they react to other things that are predictive. And sometimes it makes them look predictive. All right. And yes, it's true. People bet with their wallets, right? So if you really want, people who have skin in the game, then of course you look at the betting markets. But the fact of the matter is, the markets have gotten better in recent years of not like wildly gyrating. I remember I used to drop a poll, and if it was an outlier poll because of our track record, Predictit would just be like, whoosh, shoot in the other direction. Oh, okay, I guess that guy is going to win. Those days are over. And it's not just with me and some of the other pollsters that markets used to look at more, but there's something different now. I mean, both companies have talked about this, Kalshi and Predictit. There's things that have been changed over the years. So the markets don't move like that the way they used to. However, they are still reacting to information, things that they're getting from polls to registrations to news to whatever it could be as we get to election day. Turnout, for instance, if they were paying attention, sometimes they miss it completely, like they missed it in Texas when we were screaming about turnout. The polls were projecting a typical Republican advantage when it came to primary turnout, which increased. It wasn't a bad turnout for Republicans, but compared to Democrats, it was. And Republicans they're just not juiced, and Paxton needed those votes. So that's why Paxton underperformed that and $100 million. If you get outspent, guys, by $100 million and you spent like 4 million, 4.5, that money has real impact on a race. I can't believe Paxton didn't get crushed when you looked at the money differential later. All right. So where am I going with this? It took the markets time to realize, okay, well, if they're in trouble in Maine, if they're in trouble in Michigan, if they're in trouble in North Carolina, like now we're running out of seats, right? If they're in trouble in Georgia, well, okay, so where are you getting to 51 seats? Or even 50, with Vance being the tiebreaker, which will not happen. I will say this again, like I said it 6 months ago. If Collins loses, especially if Collins loses in Maine, and if Plattner's the nominee, it looks like she is going to lose. If Collins loses and it's up to Murkowski to keep the balance of power, she will leave the Republican Party as call herself an independent and caucus with the Democrats the way Angus King accustomed us to for many, many years. That is her plan. She has told that to multiple people. I know it for a fact. And by the way, it may happen either way. But of course, Collins is her longtime friend, and she feels that if she doesn't have that ally in the Senate anymore, she might as well just leave. And by the way, if she can do it while sticking a knife in your back on the way out, all the better. All the better. See, I think for a while, people didn't really understand what I meant when I would say something like, the election of one man a revolution does not make. The U.S. Senate was always the biggest opponent to MAGA out there. And I'm not talking about Democrats in the U.S. Senate. I'm talking about Republicans. Democrats will never betray their own base. Democrats will never betray their own president. You only see that on the Republican side because the Republican Party is corrupt. And why does that matter? Both sides are corrupt, Rich. Yes, that's true. But only one has a sliver of within its party that claims to want to fight for the little guy. All right? That's what makes it worse. At least when you turn on MSNBC, they're not lying about who they are. When you turn on CNN, they're not lying about who they are. They're not lying to their donors. They're not lying to their voters. Their donors aren't lying to their voters, right? This is the unsustainable relationship that Republicans have had with their base for many, many years. And this is what will cost them the U.S. Senate. Because unfortunately, people expected results. People expected them after everything this country went through. I don't know how it's like partisans really have blinders bad. As it turns out, Republicans are human beings too. Shocker. Or a lot of right-wing people are human beings too. They fell into the same traps that the left fell into. And instead of listening to people who have proven time and time again that they will call it straight, they will call balls and strikes, even when you don't want to hear it, they buried themselves in copium. They buried themselves in, the cheerleading, the bullshit, the way that the left did during the Trump era, ironically. And they're going to pay a price for it. Oh, Rich, it's 8 months out. It's 9 months out. That is true. However, the closer we get to the election, the less odds Republicans have of being able to turn this around. And in truth, I keep using this as a benchmark because it's like November is the last time. First of all, it's the year mark, but it's the last time as we go into the holidays that you can stress to people where the situation is before they turn off. And then they don't tune back in until like now, and they'll start to pay attention now. Here's the problem with that. It's how human minds work. Narratives start to get baked in. Beliefs become solidified, right? Views harden. That's why last November, I told you there was already a slightly greater than 70% chance that Democrats would win the national popular vote. And if that's the case, they're taking the House, of course. And the environment's so bad that the Senate is going to go with it at this rate. Now, can they fix it? Sure, they can. But we all know where it is right now. And it gets difficult. The more time that goes on, the harder it gets. And people always point to 22 and talk about the Democrats overperforming, but Democrats are much more competent, guys. I'm sorry. It's true. They're more competent. They are better equipped to decentralize their get out the vote, which is irony at its finest. The party who believes in central government is more effective at decentralizing their dark money that's used to fuel and fund get out the vote operations than the party that supposedly believes in decentralized government. They centralize everything. And under Trump, you can't blame him for this. Under Trump, Donald Trump makes that even more the case. He centralizes the money flow even more when he's the head of the party, when he is the standard bearer, when he's the president, or when he's the nominee. And whatever, I mean, that's smart. But Republicans down, to the NRSC, they took way too long to understand their situation. Now we're going into this SAVE Act. They can't even get this thing passed. You would never see that with the Democratic Party, and that's what makes them different. They're more competent, and they mean it. So when they say, don't worry, we'll save these House seats because we're going to carve shit up, they mean it. When they say, okay, let's get into a redistricting war, we'll go to the mat, they mean it. When they say that they want to fundamentally alter the nature of the relationship between the individual and the state with things like healthcare and taxation, they mean it. All right. And the fact of the matter is Republicans do not. And it's sad, but it's true. And it puts Republicans at a disadvantage. Democratic donors also are not gaslighting their voters. Republicans are. So you would never see a situation, which matters because if I have time, I'd like to shine some light on something real quick, but I'll save that to the end of the show if I have. But if you have something on the left going on, let's use the ICE raids and the deportations as an example. You would never be in a situation when we're talking about the left where if we prodded into who funded these groups, right? They're certainly not organic. Who funds these groups to make these disturbances turn into tragic incidents? If we open the books and we followed the money, which is why Kash Patel won't do it openly. He won't do it. I'm telling you. He'll go after a couple of people to make you think that they're cracking down, but they're not. The reason why is because if he followed that money, and I got to make sure I'm careful here because I should probably blow people up. You're going to find people like Bill Ackman who are funding organizations like that. You're going to find Republican donors like Ken Griffin. And another one who I'm going to leave alone because I personally like him. You're going to find so-called conservatives, donors on the right, all through the books of these organizations because they want cheap labor. They want ICE to go down. They want the deportations to stop, and they want amnesty. You would never find a betrayal like that with Democrats. Never. So this is what I mean when I say, this really has to be flawless. The right has to handle these things in a flawless manner. I don't even know how many months it was. 14 states, right? Yeah, 14, unless I don't want to speak up for him. He's currently gagged and not allowed to speak. Somebody else, we divvied up the work. So maybe 15 states. And 2, 4, 8, 16 focus groups. Ridiculous. Ridiculous amount of work. Ridiculous amount of interviews. And yet, despite the overwhelming evidence that the left had been, the right seeded them, the ICE narrative, and that ICE was really getting beat up badly, they couldn't react. They just couldn't react. They knew, they just couldn't react. They couldn't even put in minor changes in order to keep the deportations going at their current rates or more, higher rates, because the plan was actually to increase them. And they couldn't do it. And they couldn't get the backing of senators to do it. And it's people are why? Why? I don't get it. Why? Because their donors don't agree with you. By the way, speaking of that very information, got twisted up. dare I say, manipulated, and didn't even make it around in its original form for everybody to see before the donors chopped it up. And it's sad because I don't think the right understands what they're up against. I don't. And it's like, that's why I made a big deal of Raheem's interview with Jack the other day. I feel like that's probably the most important conversation MAGA needs to have with itself, because let's get real for a second. I'm not trying to doom over here on anybody. I just calling balls and strikes. MAGA is weaker than it's ever been since Donald Trump won the election, or I would say since Paul Ryan was the speaker. From that point, when they took, you got Paul Ryan's scalp, as much of an humiliation as it was for Kevin to have like a historical number of votes cast for speaker before he could get the gavel. Honestly, and I love Matt Gaetz, but should have left Kevin as the speaker, because someone's got to get beat up. And Mike Johnson would have still been a reliable MAGA vote if he wasn't taken out of his role as just a representative into the role of House Speaker, which is just a different job. And whoever's going to do it is going to get dirtied up. But since then, Biggs is gone, right? I mean, Eli Crane's still there, but you go through the list, whether you like her or not is irrelevant. MTG was MAGA through and through. Gaetz, all of them, right? And Boebert is in, and I'm sorry, sweetheart, but I think you're cooked this time. I mean, they chopped your district up pretty bad. She's always been able to scrap and fight a good race, but she's in real trouble. So that'll be the end of Boebert if things go the way they go. Leaving who? In the House of Representatives, who's MAGA. And a lot of this is at the president's own hand. Again. So, I mean, this is where it's at. And you can't deliver. Wow, my New York accent just came out right there. You cannot deliver. I try to do my best to hide it. And you can't deliver a MAGA agenda, which is what people were voting for. They're not voting for Republicans, guys. Nobody likes the Republican Party, okay? They were voting to put America first. They were voting to put their jobs first. They were voting for no new wars. They were, it's true. I think the debate is over now, right? Can we stop this now? I thought the debate was over after you got your asses kicked last year and everybody was sending back messages to the Republican volunteers like Epstein. Like, I thought you realized you were cooked at that point and we were going to dispense with the charade and just move into trying to right the ship, but that didn't happen. So here we are now, even 6 months after that fact. And it's I can't even entertain the fact that those people were ever saying anything intelligent. This is always where we were going to end up. And I just don't know, how do you deliver the agenda that has been winning national elections after Bushism left the Republican Party in complete disarray? How do you win those elections if when you're governing, you can't deliver that agenda? You can't. See, Barack Obama survived, even though he did very badly in the midterms, low turnout. He survived in 2012 because he still had the appearance that he cared about you and that he was trying. And coupled with an exceptionally strong performance by Black women specifically, and an exceptionally weak performance by Mitt Romney, with what we're just going to continue referring to as all the winning parts of a right-wing coalition, he survived. But he always kept that appearance. He cares about people like me. He's trying. He's trying to deliver. That's what Republicans have lost. And that is incredibly unfortunate for them because it's incredibly difficult to get back. All right. All right. We'll peek at the generic ballot here in a little bit. I just wanted to wait for a couple more. It's we start the show a little bit earlier now. During the weekdays, we'll only start interviews an hour and a half before the show. So if I'm trying to get something fresh, maybe we have 100 and something responses right now. And I could go and look and check. I just wanted to give it a little bit more time toward the end of the show before peeking at it. But if I had to ballpark it, I would say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of Democrat +6, something like that. I do see that some others are having some generic ballot tightening. I'm telling you, those pollsters are doing the same thing wrong that they did in Virginia, that they did in New Jersey. And they also did just in Texas, trying to predict the primary vote. they're polling a population that doesn't exist, all right, or that will not exist as an electorate. At this point, we are close enough to the midterms that we have to start deciding what is the pollster's number one job. Vote preference is kind of easy. Like, the vote preference for an entire population is very easy to discern as a pollster. That is not what makes like you a good pollster versus like a great pollster. A great pollster knows who's going to vote. That is what, like, there's this old adage. Hey, who's going to win this election? Well, I mean, I'll tell you what. Ed Rollins used to say this all the time. I'll tell you what. You tell me who's going to vote, and I'll tell you who's going to win. Right. Well, that's kind of the job of the pollster, and they forgot that. So at this point, a lot of these polls that are showing somewhat competitive or tighter are not, I'm telling you, they are not predicting an accurate electorate, and they're wrong. It's actually a little bit worse. I mean, honestly, I'll just show you guys right now. What is that? 1,342. Why so many interviews? Hold on. Let me just make sure there's not that many. There's not like stale stuff in here. Oh, it's not. It's just panels came in quicker than expected. I didn't expect them to come in that much. And how much of this is from the phone? All right. So 900 and something from the panel, 400 and something from the phone. Not bad. Let's take a look. All right. This is the generic ballot. If it is a simple voter screen, this does not include vote history. So we'll have to go back. Don't like hold my arm on this here, guys. All right. But because I haven't gone through and like tweaked it and weighted it. But generally, you know how we are at this point. You know how it goes with our polling. We're generally pretty representative in the raw samples. All right. You're not going to get some huge weight change from us. Does it tweak it somewhat? Sure. Maybe it's D+8 in the raw and it turns out to be D+6 when it's weighted. You're not going to get massive changes that change the overall result. The war question we have to ask again. Unfortunately, while we were waiting, this one company's buying everybody and their mother. And when they eventually moved over, or cross tabulation market site, when they moved it over, they locked, not just me, apparently, they locked a bunch of us out of the account for like 4 or 5 days, trying to make sure that when they took control of market site, obviously they're getting the payments. They want the money, of course. And in that process, they locked us out for damn near a full week. So a lot of the stuff that we had done prior, I'm not going to release. I'm not friggin' Marist and others. I'm not putting out a week-old poll. So I'm going to eat the money and we'll just keep polling. That's the way that it's like you have 3 choices as a pollster like that. It's the same thing if you get bad data. Your choice is to keep polling and make sure you have fresh data that's not stale. The second is that you could just scrap the entire poll. And the third choice, which is the least desirable choice, is to put it out and pretend like you're prescient or something. Honestly, Marist just did that a little bit ago. They put out a poll, I think 2 days ago. If you look at the field dates, it's from March 2nd to March 4th. What took you so long to process those results? 2 days at most. 2 days at most. All right, so here it is. As you can see, Democrats are in the lead. What about the leaners? Let me just check the leaners. All right, Republicans are winning slightly more leaners. This is almost identical to what it was last week. Republicans are about a point higher than if you go back and look at the episode of What Are the Odds that Barnes and I did. You'll see that Democrats were also at 47 in that poll. Republicans, however, were at 37. So they went up about a point. And this is raw. We'll see where it ends up when it's weighted. But this is also including a bit of a better voter model. I mean, a bigger voter model projecting, because I do think we're going to have some we're going to have gangbuster Democratic turnout without a doubt. But I think we're going to have some pretty significant turnout among Republicans as well. I just don't think it's going to be enough. Okay, here, this is actually better news. Hold on, let me show you this. Better news for Republicans. So if we tighten the voter model, it does look like a little bit better for them. So if it was a more, why isn't it showing on the screen? If it was a more traditional electorate for a midterm, let me make myself smaller, then you can see then So Democrats stay at 47 and Republicans tick up almost to 41, 1/10 away from 41, but nevertheless 40.4. It's not good. And what is further concerning to me is that I'm seeing things I haven't seen in a while. On the phone, for instance, independents routinely are just below or sometimes a little over 50% on the generic ballot. And if you've been watching me for a long time, you know how this works. Independents always have a high undecided number, and it really doesn't fall until we get closer to the election. They still have that undecided number. It's not as high as it has been in the past, but it's twice as much, 3 times as much as partisans, as as we should expect. But yet Democrats are still taking an increased vote share of those who are decided. So that should be very concerning. It represents there's a very hardening of views with independents. And it's, what does it mean? In plain English, folks, it means it will be much harder to get them to change their minds. All right, what about in the leaners? Yep, and Republicans are still winning in the leaning here, but something else that concerns me is that 8.5 months out, roughly 9 months out, roughly, we're only at 4.5% for someone else. That third party vote share will continue to decrease as we get closer to the elections, and also as we tighten the screen and know who's going to vote more than others. So really about 8% that are undecided. Well, I mean, guys, they're down by 7 and 8% is undecided. It's not good. It's a bleak situation. I am only because so many of these grifter, scumbag, wannabe, pretend smart people think like they're going to get away with this or something. I'm going to say I told you so, not because it makes me feel good, but because they're scam artists. And too many people listened to these scam artists. You could have avoided this. Sorry, I'm mirrored. You could have avoided this. This was not inevitable. This was not like ordained by God to happen. Preordained by God. This was a choice. This was a choice. The war question's ugly, by the way, but we're waiting on that. I'm not giving a sneak peek of that. The longer this goes on, the less popular the war will get. All right. And it's funny because there actually is an improved approval rating for Trump. It's just not resulting in a better situation for Republicans. The importance of avoid war is 80%. There has been polls now asking the same thing, like, does Benjamin Netanyahu have too much influence over Donald Trump? Kind of thing. That question is ugly. Wait till you see it. Look, a majority of the country thinks Israel has too much influence over foreign policy, and it's a question we have to have. Now, speaking of, that's a good place to segue into what's going on here. All right. Do I start with let's start with let's put our international relations caps on. For those who don't join the book club, which you should, peoplespundit.locals.com, we read, and we got to get through this other book. It's just there's a war going on and nobody wants to talk about financial markets. Currently, we're reading, it's right here, actually, A Demon of Our Own Design. Now, it's funny because Richard Bookstaber, his thesis applies to so much more than the financial markets, but it may get prescient real soon, guys. So stay tuned for increased relevance. I'm usually very good at picking the books that we're reading on book club to go with the time we're in. Now, when we started reading a lot of foreign policy stuff, the Ukrainian war was kicking off, right? This is how long book club's been going on. And we read things like Myths of Empire, Jack Snyder. I mean, seminal work. We read, of course, the great John Mearsheimer, who is labeled an anti-Semitic in this ridiculous, nonsensical field where there's stupid people talking about foreign policy that they don't know anything about. Great interview, by the way, Max Blumenthal had with John Mearsheimer yesterday. It's like 3 hours long. It's fantastic. For those of you who don't study international relations or haven't in school, for instance, that's not your degree. What makes you an expert, Rich? I got bored and I got one. All right, that's what makes me one. And I think I got that with like a 4.0. Not to brag. I'll have to have Laura go dig that one up, which I don't put on a wall or anything. I just wanted to get it. Mearsheimer's a god in foreign policy academia. He's a god. He destroyed Bruce Russett's democratic peace theory in like 3 pages of a book. Not even. It may be like a page and a half. Like he just dismantled it. This is idiocy. It's not right. Move on. Bruce Russett was, of course, confronted with the ability to not be able to defend his thesis against people like Mearsheimer and others, and he collapsed. Like, so this is what most of Washington, D.C. believes in, a failed thesis statement that hasn't been defended in academia. It's unbelievable. Waltz, another one, amazing theorist. Of course, he's a defensive realist like Schneider, whereas John Mearsheimer is the, I guess you would call it the author of offensive realism. I'm getting somewhere. Stay tuned. And we read The Tragedy of Great Power Politics in book club as well. And that one was like a must read because a lot of what Mearsheimer had predicted was coming true. Mearsheimer, along with others, have long argued that our relationship with Israel is the opposite of what you hear in the news all the time. Well, we have this special relationship and we get so much, and we get so much back. Our ROI on a return on investment when it comes to our foreign aid of Israel is like 500,000 billion %, like ridiculous numbers. Of course, ludicrous. And Mearsheimer and others would argue that actually we have yet to pay the true price for our relationship with Israel and Iraq, for instance, The Long Road to Baghdad, another great book. These are all the product of our relationship with Israel, right? 9/11, the product of our relationship with Israel. It's not really oil. We have, the United States has other alternatives when it comes to oil and energy. This relationship is hurting us, and it's causing us to get into conflicts that are not smart, and it's resetting and readjusting constantly the balance of power, not only in the region, but in the world. And for those who don't know, let me just the international system is governed by nothing. It's an international state of anarchy, and you're constantly in a relative power flux, all states do, all nations do, trying to get a relative power advantage over your regional neighbors. What is the goal for a great power? It's hegemony. Hegemony is that you are the dominant power in your sphere of influence. And Mearsheimer, Waltz, and others were called horrible names simply by holding Israel to the same standard that every other nation is held to. It doesn't matter that they're Jewish. It doesn't matter if they're Muslim. It doesn't matter if they're Christian, they're German, they're French, they're British, they're American, they're this. Doesn't matter. Nation states make rational decisions in the pursuit of security. And we can predict how they're going to behave based on past behavior, but also comparisons to other nations who are in their position. And with that said, here we go. Prepare for people to be big mad. Nobody should be surprised how Israel is acting, because we have a very good historical example of a nation state that's an aspiring great power who acted the same way under the same circumstances. That's a tease. Hang tight. I'm going to play this clip and I'll say it.
The infrastructure, but also going into Lebanon as well. I think Lebanon is not getting a lot of attention, but I saw something which is really quite shocking. There's something like 10% of the entire population of Lebanon, some 700,000 or 800,000 people, have been displaced from their homes. That's rather extraordinary. Incredible. All right, what is Israel's goal in this whole thing?
Time out. What is Israel's goal in this whole thing? All right. I mean, that's a big question, isn't it? And do those goals match what should be the goals for the United States? Are Israel's goals even compatible with what should be the goals of the United States? Of course not. Israel wants to do what every other expansionist power wants to do. Take. Because they view expansion as increased security. I'm going to leave it there. By the way, just before I let them continue their conversation, because I'm using it to ride into something, I will just also say this. He mentioned the Lebanese. They are not alone, of course. This goal to expand Israel's influence in the region, even its territory in the region, has had a profound impact on Western civilization. They have caused, and the wars they've gotten us into. I mean, stupidly, don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming Israel here. They're doing what Israel should be expected to do because they're looking out for their own people. Our leaders are the ones who are selling us out and are making us less secure by doing what's better for another country instead of by doing what's best for another country instead of doing what's best for us. It's irrational, actually. And by the way, there's an explanation for that even in realism. Jack Snyder, in a book I just mentioned before, Myths of Empire, he explains it quite well. Money and factions, they pollute rational decision-making. But we'll get to that in a second. Lebanese are next. We had Syrian regime change, Netanyahu's war, 100% Netanyahu with the backing of the CIA. What has that done to Europe? And what happens every time we displace all of these Muslim populations? We all start throwing on our white guilt hats and our Western, civilization guilty hats. And we'll take them. That's our fault. All those poor people. We'll destroy our own communities. Come on in. To the point where Europe has basically given themselves an epidemic of serial gang rapes. This is what it does. This is a concept. Is that what is in the best interest of Western Europe? So when you see Spain, like Lindsey Graham had a heart attack over, and I'm not going to have time to play the clip because I can see what time it is. Lindsey Graham had a heart attack over this. They're a NATO ally. How dare they permanently recall their U.S. ambassador from Israel? How dare they do that? How dare they not support us? NATO is what is called a balancing coalition. It was meant to balance against the expansionist tendencies of the Warsaw Pact, which is now defunct and has been dissolved. It doesn't exist anymore. But it was a defensive in stated mission purpose. It was a defensive balancing coalition, meaning we weren't going to be expansionist. Of course we are, which is why there's a war in Eastern Europe right now because of NATO expansion. But they have absolutely no obligation to join a preemptive war or a war of aggression, which is what this is, because they are member nations in NATO. It's like we forgot this debate during Iraq, Senator Graham. We had this debate already when other nations did not want to join our invasion of Iraq. They are under no obligation to do so. Article 10 is about what again? Right, if one of us get attacked. That's not what happened here. Well, Rich, Hamas attacked Israel in October 2023. Right, and guess what? Israel's not a member of NATO. There's no argument here where this makes sense. Now, let me finish what he's doing. All we're doing is flooding our countries, plural, Western civilization, with massive numbers of people who are completely incompatible with Western civilization. Now, that's good for who? Who is it good for if we displace all of these Muslim Middle Eastern populations and they just suddenly no longer even live in the Middle East? They live in Europe. They live in America. They live in Australia, New Zealand, all over the effing map. Who does that benefit? America? No, it doesn't. It benefits the tiny encircled nation of Israel in the Middle East. Let's go back to Bernie.
I think it's important to recognize that Israel believes that its security is achieved by dominating the region. It is not seeking security by balancing threats or managing threats, but he actually has to dominate the region.
Yes.
So for it to have total security, everyone else has to have total insecurity. And as a result, it's seeking its domination over Syria, over Lebanon. These are countries that Israel can bomb at will with impunity without US involvement. It was also seeking the same objective with Iran. So it's not looking for a different regime. He doesn't care if the next supreme leader's name is Moshtaba, Hassan, or Ali. That's not of relevance. What's of relevance is that Iran does not have any capabilities, military, economic, political, to pose a challenge to Israel's desire for domination out of its belief of security. And
I'm out. Okay. If you go on X right now and you find that video, which is where I got it, look underneath, look at the quote tweets. This one's anti-Semitic. And he's a Jew hater. This, blah, 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 blah. Nothing he said is novel. Nothing he said is even incorrect. That is textbook international relations theory. It's offensive realism 101. They are an encircled nation. What do I mean by that, by the way? They're surrounded by enemies. It really is that simple. They believe the more they expand, the more territory they create as a bulwark, against their enemies being right up on them. And by the way, you can't blame them for thinking that, which is basically the basis of my defense of them for 10 years, which I will every day for the rest of my life ask the Lord to forgive me for, because I was absolutely wrong to defend them. But he is talking the language of foreign policy academia 101. And guess what? He's right. He's right. They don't believe they can balance. They don't want to balance. This is about domination and expansion, because what he's saying isn't a slight against Jews. It's not even a slight against Israel. All nations act like this, or all aspiring great powers or great powers who are expansionist powers, growing powers, of which they are. They are a growing population in a tiny territory surrounded by enemies. Of course they want to expand. Here's the problem. We have other examples of this, and it doesn't work out very well for the expansionist power, unless, of course, they can do something called bandwagoning, which is jump on the bandwagon of another great power and bleed them dry at their expense. That is exactly what's happening here. It's been happening for decades, and we just haven't been allowed to talk about it. Here's the big mad part. Here's the statement that's going to make everybody big mad. Israel isn't acting much different than Germany did before World War I and before, here it is, World War II. They were an encircled power, and tiny little Alsace-Lorraine was not enough of a bulwark between them and their enemies. And what did they do? They were aggressive. They took territory. They tried to push out and expand the borders of their safety. That is why they're not allowed to have a military anymore, because they are just too industrial. They could be too much of an industrial power, and they are encircled, and their natural reaction will be to push out. This is common, well-known, established international relations theory. It doesn't make you anti-Semitic for bringing it up. Israel is getting a stupid superpower to bleed themselves so they don't suffer what is typically the result of encircled powers who try to push out, which is obliteration. And here's the cautionary tale for Israel. Your political influence in America, despite how much money, an ungodly amount of money. This is why everyone focuses on Israel. It's not that there isn't foreign money all over the system. There is. If you go to K Street, you'll see the Russian influence. You'll see the Chinese influence. It's everywhere. But the amounts specifically targeted to legislation and picking nominees for major parties, nothing is on par with Israel. Nothing. It's the amount of money that matters. And it doesn't matter how much you spend, because last year you made a critically wrong decision, a critical miscalculation. Instead of taking sound advice that myself and others gave you on how to reapproach the newer generations in this country who don't like you, you decided instead that we're going to buy TikTok. We're going to go on a smear campaign using all of hated voices in public life, from politicians to podcasters and fake wannabe influencers. We're going to pay all of them to smear all the people that are liked by those generations. And we'll engage in censorship. Yep, that's a much better idea. And that was the path they chose. So now I think at this point, it's probably permanently burned. And they decided we're going to get as much as we can out of Trump, because we have leverage over Trump, obviously. We're going to get as much as we can out of him before the next president, who will not give us the time of day again. I think that was a horrible miscalculation by Israel, because there's not enough time for them to accomplish their goals in the Trump administration. Trump's political capital has been drained, man. Drained like a main vein after a gallon of Gatorade. Like, completely drained by Israel. They have sucked all of the political capital out of this administration. They're about to get eviscerated in the midterms because of it. And that is not enough time to accomplish the goals that Israel will need to accomplish in order to not suffer the blowback. Now, I'm sure they have a plan. I'm sure that plan involves a détente of sorts at our expense with countries like India, maybe even China. Let's not forget, Benjamin Netanyahu threw Donald Trump under the bus immediately after 2020. This is not a guy who's going to worry about long-term relationships with the United States. They'll move on and they'll get what relationships they need to get. And it will come at our expense. However, what happens to these encircled powers is always rather tragic. Eventually, their enemies decide, let's team up and get them. And in case you haven't noticed, and I know it's hard to with all the money and the propaganda, it can turn the reality of the world upside down. Israel doesn't have many friends. They have isolated everybody except for Donald Trump. And now at this rate, they're probably going to even isolate him. He just doesn't know, and he has no idea how to get out of this. Like again, we're not going down the Delulu, don't worry. Everybody calm down. Iran is about to quit. They're about to surrender. Okay, when do you think that's going to be? I don't know, because I killed everyone who has the power to surrender. Like, this is lunacy. It's a shit show. I know it's a shit show. For a fact, I know it's a shit show. And they have no idea how to get out of this thing. They can't control the Israelis. They're doing shit on their own without the president's permission, doing incredibly dumb shit, hitting water desalination plants, destroying oil fields that, Trump does not want destroyed because he does not want the price of gas to spike. But Netanyahu doesn't give a shit because Israel doesn't give a shit. He's not going to pay the political price that the president's going to have to pay for it. It doesn't matter to them. They're doing what's in Israel's best interest, which is what you would expect an aspiring great power to do. This is not anything against a people or this. It's ridiculous. That is bullshit designed to stymie debate like this, designed to stymie the truth, which is what this is. And It's smart. Let's be real. It's smart. You have Ted Cruz on the daily committing heresy for you. Take it while you can get it. I actually thought that clip was AI at first. I swear to God I did. I really did. And I never liked the sword of the Lord, but I thought it was AI. I'm like, Ted Cruz did not say that. That Christ is king is anti-Semitic. He did not say that. I got like 15 text messages. Oh my God, did you see what Ted Cruz said? I'm like, no. He's Catholic. Maybe he misunderstood. He could not have said that. Oh no, he did. He did. Guy's a heretic. That's all there is to it. But like, that's what they got. So by the time they get like, by the time everybody comes to their senses, will Israel have been able to achieve as much as they wanted to achieve? Because like, again, if it comes down to whether you do support Israel and you care about the future of the nation of Israel, then you should care about this, because encircled aggressors end up destroyed. Almost always. And I could see how they could get this plan off. They could pull this off, but it would rely on the continued support of the United States, of which they will not have soon. Buying TikTok isn't going to cut it. Using words like deplatforming and amplifying the language of the left, which they were always leftists, it's not going to cut it. You're not going to turn a generation back toward you doing stuff like this, attacking all of the people who they love. Not going to cut it. And you're not going to have the Republican majorities to dupe very much longer. So I just don't know how they could accomplish the goals that they set out to accomplish in 8 months, because what is much more likely is that those Gulf states, there was a method to Iran's madness. The Ayatollah wasn't a madman, guys. They make rational decisions. Nation states make rational decisions. Why hasn't Kim Jong-un, the madman, nuked somebody already into an oblivion? He's looking like a smart man right now, isn't he? The madman theory is bullshit. It's not true. It's a way for them to sell you myths. And we are a myth-believing society. They make rational decisions. And the five-finger strategy was a very rational, very smart. And it's more than likely going to result in an alteration forever of the security agreement in the Gulf. Of course, it was entirely predicated on our ability to protect them. We couldn't. Iran proved it. And then they're going to decide, after the U.S. influence has been dramatically weakened in the region, which it will. It's done. That's done. They will decide what to do with Israel. And basically every nation in the region almost has a history of conflict with Israel. That what the Saudis do there will matter a lot. But if they determine, and I'm going to finish playing this clip because what he says, it's the opposite of what you're hearing in the news, but this is the truth. This is absolutely the truth. This is how states make decisions. They will look at Israel's aggression and they will decide whether they want to confront it or not. Almost always, encircled aggressors are confronted and destroyed. So, I mean, Germany didn't have a United States to go run to. They eventually went and made friends with, of course, well, depending on what World War, in the Second World War, Italy. They allied with Italy. They allied with Japan. And they didn't have a giant superpower that they could go run to protection for. That's the X factor here. But the problem, again, is that's not going to be the case forever. Israel will be a political pariah in this country very soon. I thought, again, we've been over this before, 6-8 years. No, they do not have 6 to 8 years now. It's not going to happen. All right, let me finish this. And then there's something else I want to bring up. Actually, I don't know. Maybe I'll just do a separate video about that. Oh, no. Okay.
What's of relevance is that Iran does not have any capabilities, military, economic, political, to pose a challenge to Israel's desire for domination out of its belief of security. And what this war is achieving from the Israeli standpoint is exactly that. Iran is being blown up to pieces, even if it may have military capabilities left and deterrence through its missile, it is nevertheless being set back 10, 15, 20 years. And that is a major achievement from the Israeli standpoint. From the US standpoint, it is not, because all we're doing is destabilizing the entire region, undermining global markets, undermining regional allies.
That's the big deal. Okay. Undermining regional allies. And by the way, he's right about Iran. You know, this does, it's a huge accomplishment for Israel if they can do it. The problem is they're not the only power in the region who doesn't particularly like them. Who helped Hamas a lot? I mean, Hamas like helped them militarily, but provided a lot of humanitarian aid, offered to send scientists during the ceasefire when Hamas just simply didn't have the scientific capability to locate and identify all of these bodies that were part of the terms of peace. Egypt has a massive army. You think Turkey's just going to, you think Erdogan is just going to sit there and let Israel make them the next Iran? Do you think that's going to happen? By the way, Turkey is unlike Israel, Turkey is a NATO member nation. Oh, but they're Muslim, Rich. They're Muslim. They're extremists. You're an Islamic lover. Right. Those Islamic lovers let us land planes there, refuel, conduct military operations against Iraq from there. If it wasn't for Turkey, we would not have been able to do what we have done in the last 2 decades in the Middle East. Israel didn't do that. You know how many soldiers Israel contributed to the war in Iraq? 0. Nothing. You're being baited and bled. That's what you're being. And you'll be left for dead. He's totally right. This has altered the security agreement and stability in the region for I don't know how long. It is a total shit show in the White House right now. They don't know how to get it back. They don't know how to reinstill confidence. It's becoming a fight between two factions. One who rightfully can say, I told you so. I told you not to do this. You did it anyway. And now they're going to get the brunt of a tantrum. That's what's really happening in the White House right now. There's no grand plan. We were playing 460 chess to weaken China. No, we were playing checkers and we got our ass kicked. That's what happened. Not in the war, but in the region. So sad. It's just so tragic. Stability. Look, was it a kind of weird piece? You know? Yeah, it's the Middle East. It's a crazy area, but it was working. How's your gas prices doing? It was working. This benefited us? Not at all. Don't tell me it's not a regime change. You sound like an idiot. Don't tell me Iran's been at war with us for 30 years. Then why didn't you declare it 15 years ago? Shut up with the slop. You have weakened us dramatically. Stupid. It's always the same stupid ass generation too who buys it. And I got to tell you, I'm over it. Like I've been thinking a lot about this lately. I hope when I'm that age, I am not so blind and selfish that I don't put the needs of my children and my grandchildren or that what's in their best interest first. And I don't push nonsense, slop, nonsense. They're going to have a nuclear weapon. What are you talking about? I thought they destroyed it 6 months ago. If nuclear weapons is the problem, why don't we declare war on Kim Jong-un? You don't have an argument. You sound like a friggin' idiot. You sound like a moron who got in a time machine. I went back 20 years to the Iraq War. You sound like those people. You learn nothing. Only guess what? We're $40 trillion now in debt. We can't afford to make these mistakes. Let me let this guy finish, and then we'll move on. I'm just going to do a separate, I'm just telling Laura, guys, I'll do a separate video. Listen, this guy's got a few days. And I'm trying to get the administration to help this guy. I'm just going to outwardly say it. It's the most disgusting thing I think I've ever seen. Or not ever seen, but it's one of the most disgusting injustices I've ever heard about. And this is an easy win. But this is what happens with war. You're paralyzed. Your government is paralyzed. Woodrow Wilson hated it. He had big plans for the domestic economy. He had big plans for social reforms. He had huge plans. And I'm glad he didn't get them because he, of course, is a left-wing nutcase. A racist one, by the way, which is why half of those damn world wars happened. But it's another day. He lamented how his administration was completely consumed in the pursuit of saving democracy for the world. It's another lie, by the way. Democracies don't war less. They do not. They're democracies. We have to push democracy. What are you talking? The democracies are murderous. Haven't you been paying attention? It's not true at all. All right, let's get back to this, because this guy's right. He's speaking truth right now.
Who are terrified about the consequences of this, but Israel is by and large insulated from those consequences and as a result does not care. The question is, why is it that the Trump administration has gone along with a war that serves Israel's interests depending on how they define their interests, but does not advance U.S. interests?
Oh, man. Stop it, bro. Stop it, bro. You're using big words. These words are too big for everybody to understand. He's right. Of course he's right. And it sucks because you have to wait for the war thumping to stop. When those of us who have been around long enough, we don't get caught up in this, like the fervor. We don't use words like unpatriotic to describe somebody who has legit and true, in this case, criticisms of what we're doing. You know, Laura just said this. She's absolutely right. It's the same myths repackaged over and over again to sell you on the same stupid shit over and over again. And you just keep buying it over and over again. Honestly, brought up Mearsheimer before. He's actually written a lot about this. And so is Snyder, who came up with Myths of Empire. It's unfortunate because it's almost evil, if you think about it, because they know Americans are fundamentally idealistic and they're generous and they're good people and they're not like cold realists. Like, I know I'm a cold realist. I know it, but not all Americans are like me. They want to believe that the natural state for everybody is freedom. That's not true, of course, but they want to believe that. The natural state for the Western mind and Western philosophy is freedom. That's sad, but it's true. The natural state for the Chinese is not Periclean democracy. Otherwise, they would have had Periclean democracy.
Then there would never have been an America.
Of course not. We're the birth of those long progression of those ideas. Of course. Well, we were supposed to be. 250-year anniversary, and we're doing this stupid bullshit.
But,
and fake.
They also foretold this, though.
Of course.
They said that we need
war. There is constantly a pull between tyranny and liberty. Mm-hmm. War is the worst. Every time there's a war, you lose freedom. Every time. I can go through this one by one by one by one. I actually did this on a Twitter post, not long ago. It was in response to Glenn Beck, AI faking. I didn't show this to you. I don't know if you saw this, but he put George Washington in a blue t-shirt and AI'd it like he was interviewing George Washington, who would support the war in Iran. The guy who warned against foreign entanglements has been resurrected by AI to push Bibi's propaganda. Like, you have crossed the line. Of course he's rolling. Glenn Beck has crossed the line with me forever. Mm-hmm. And the worst thing about it is, like, Glenn, this goes back to what I was trying to finish my thought, is like, Glenn knows what he's doing. He's not an idiot. Oh, yeah. So, like, this is what is evil, straight up evil about these myths, and that they do this because they're taking advantage of you. They're doing it on purpose. They're taking advantage of all of the good elements of you, and they're using them against you. Mm-hmm. It's like basically the most satanic thing you can do, because what does the devil do? Right? Mm-hmm. So if you're a believer, anyway, I don't mean to not talk to, if you're a non-believer out there, just try to bear with me, but like, it's just like, think about the deceptions. Thank you. Deception is deception, right? So even if you're not a believer out there, like, that's what, of course, Christian theology, that's what the devil is doing. He's the deceiver. He's the great liar, right? So even if you don't believe and you're not, you understand deception. You understand that the worst deceptions are ones that are very intentional. They're very, premeditated, and they take the best of you and make it into something dark and bad. It's like corruption of the human spirit. It's disgusting. It's the worst thing I think you can do, because I don't know, maybe part of me, this comes from my the part of me that is a believer. But even if I wasn't, I still would like to think that I would believe this, which is that really, like, fundamentally, Cerno was right about this, by the way. Like, all we can really do is hope we shine more light in the world while we're alive, right? With truth, things that are good, and truth, of course, is good. And they're doing the opposite of that. And then they're corrupting others along the way. It's evil. And it's sad because every time this happens, that light dims a little more until eventually it'll be extinguished. There will be nothing left. I mean, that's the goal. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying that is the goal.
You know me, one light.
But I get that. But, like, when, ultimately, I mean, I don't want to go into, like, a sermon here, but, like, we're honestly not meant to win this thing. You know what I mean? But, like,
no, we
but,
do win.
Well, right.
It's
well,
different.
We don't win shit. Which brings me, by the way, to, like, I know, I'll leave that part alone. We'll leave that for another thing. But yeah, that is the sickest part about taking advantage of the myths, is that they absolutely do know that they're selling you a lie, and they're using the best parts of you against you. And it's sad. I mean, they did this with immigration.
And then it manipulates your decision making.
Of course, you want to be good. You want to be generous. Oh my God, the protesters. Oh, I want to save the protesters. It doesn't matter. All of those numbers were total bullshit. It doesn't matter. They want you to go in there, and they know you want to be the liberator, even though their definition of liberation is obviously a little bit different than yours probably is. Yeah, we immediately liberated over 100 girls. Okay? And what do we hear? Idiots like little girls. And by the way, I mean, you can't keep blaming another nation forever. You have to take accountability for your own actions. I just had a debate with this, which unfortunately is probably going to end our friendship. But I just had a debate with this. Like, listen, I'm so sick of you, because his excuse was, oh, well, we had to because Israel did this. We did this because Israel did that when we were forced. No, you're not forced. You're not. You're the greatest superpower in the world. And by the way, bro, when you die, do you think the Lord's going to say, hey, it's okay. We understand. Israel made you do this. Like, that's not going to happen. You have your hands, bro. Look at them. They're bloody as fuck. All right. Like, that's it. And you're going to, you did it. You did it. Like, that's it. I'm sorry. And, I mean, there's no other way out of it. I'm going to leave that alone, though. Otherwise, I'm going to wind up giving the contents of the entire conversation. I just think it's so sad, because I just want you guys, I guess the point I'm trying to convey here is I want you guys to understand that this is for you. Those lines, those myths, all that's for you. They don't believe them. They themselves don't believe them. All right. 20,000 protesters. We're going to go in there and save 20. Yes, we went in there to save 20,000 protesters, and the 30 towns that no longer have clean water because we hit that desalination plant. Are they liberated? I mean, guys, this is stupid. This is stupid. I mean, this can way worse suffering. And by the way, I mean, it was such a dishonest debate in the first place. Those were not protests against the Iranian regime. Obviously, can we put that to bed now? Because if they were, they would have rose up and took the country back, guys. They weren't waiting to be liberated. Those were protests against the cost of living. Like, we have our own problem here, which, by the way, is in part we're to blame for that because of our sanctions. And Mossad was running through the streets, whipping all of that up. Come on, man. I mean, it's just totally ludicrous. Totally ludicrous. All right. Meanwhile, again, like I said, I would strongly suggest you go read that. And don't forget, crisis is the rallying cry of the tyrant. All right. You want to resurrect some people? Every time we get into these things, we lose. We lose something. Let me ask you guys something, honestly, and I'll leave you with this. Like, and actually, I'm going to peek at the generic ballot again before we go. I don't think it's much different. I see like another 100 interviews. It's not. It's 47-30, 37. Let me just wait it and we'll see what. Oh my God, that can't be right. It's worse. Oh my God, it is worse.
Get to your point.
I'm sorry, guys. I got over my point. How long has it been? It's now 25 years later. Laura's cousin passed away in 9/11. Passed away. Laura's cousin was murdered in 9/11. Did we win this fight?
No, we lost freedom in this fight.
Of course, we lost. We have lost this fight.
Patriot Act.
They imposed a surveillance state on us. Traveling around the country will never be the same again. Your emails are not secure. Your phone calls are mass collected. Your metadata is mass collected. The Bush administration, the so-called right-wing limited government administration, grew the federal government by a size we had not seen since the Second World War. We lost. We're losing. The demographic trends are kicking us out of our own homes. Western Europe is a shit show. France is about to fall. The UK doesn't even believe in freedom of speech anymore. We're losing. And you want another war in the Middle East for the same bullshit arguments? Our poor children. Our poor children.
They got robbed of
We
our-
were not big enough for these challenges, obviously.
And as somebody who lost a cousin in that,
Go kill the terrorists.
I
Come
never
home.
supported the Patriot Act.
Yeah, that's true.
Never supported
Honestly, you were like, okay. Real men admit when they were wrong. Laura's been right about a lot. Even before Laura was like super political. I thought like other idiots at the time. But then again, in my fairness, I was a soldier
Yes,
for a while.
I know.
All right. So to be fair to me,
I love you.
and like Bush was the commander in chief, and you said stupid shit like, you know what? I don't want to question him because he might know more than me. I know he knows more than me. He's got information that I don't have.
That you want him to know more than you.
Course.
That you
Of
hope
course,
that you hope
Laura
the number one leader of the world actually knows
knows
more, but they
what
don't.
the hell they're doing. Because it terrifies us to let ourselves admit for a second, maybe they don't. And guess what? I hate to shatter your little worldview. They don't.
They're human.
Was told it wasn't popular. Dude was told it wouldn't be Venezuela. Dude was told the straits could get closed and gas could shoot up. Dude was told 60% of the country wants to focus on domestic, or thinks, not even wants to. They all want to, but like think you are focusing too much on foreign, like you're wasting your presidency on Israel. Like dude was told all this. And dude did it anyway.
Make it make sense.
The only way it does make sense is what we just said.
Mm-hmm.
You have to dare to have the courage enough to say, they're not superhuman.
Nope.
They, in fact, don't have all of this supersonic secret, super valuable information that we don't have. I used to say dumb shit like that, too. I used to say dumb shit like, Laura, I think you're wrong about the Patriot Act because, listen, this is Bush. This is our guy. And he's not going to abuse it.
And I said, what happens to after Bush if he...
She said, let's assume that's not retarded.
Yes.
All right. That's what she would say.
play this game.
Let's play this game. Let's assume that's not a incredibly stupid statement that would make the founding fathers roll over in their grave, that any American would ever utter something so dumb. What happens after George Bush isn't in office anymore? Even the author of the Patriot Act now opposes the Patriot Act. And by the way, he's gone too. That goes to my point earlier about like, this is the least MAGA Republican Congress, period. This is just something we should have learned. Like, we really just don't have time to relearn these lessons anymore.
Well, they keep us too busy.
Yeah, but no, here's what really happened. And I don't mean, I'm not like purposely trying to offend you where you are in your age cohort, your age bucket.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, the remnants of the boomer generation is killing us. They're preventing us from moving on, and they're preventing us from correcting the mistakes that they made. I don't listen. My old man's a boomer. I love him to death. But
What
like,
was their number one statement? Even
my own
my
man
family
would say that. Yeah.
No, that couldn't.
Before.
Yes.
Before. Oh, right. They would say things like, yeah, totally. Like that would never happen in America.
In America.
That, yeah.
They will never do this.
They will never do this. They'll never let Muslims take over Dearborn, Michigan.
Exactly.
They'll never let whole towns in Pennsylvania be swallowed up by illegal immigrants. Like I remember.
Could never rob an election.
Yeah, they would never be able to steal an election. It's like, and these are the people who lived through like Nixon, Kennedy, dude. Well, my dad was like, what, 8? But right. But
all that pot did something to them.
No, and that's another. I mean, it's like these, but they killed us with this, and like it's funny because I am going to give one last attempt to reach this generation. And by the way, it's now March 13th, so I thank God I got my market site back, because the fact of the matter is, after that, I'm just going to go scorched earth. It is what it is. There has to be a break. We have to have this realignment, this break, because they don't, the younger under boomers aren't myth believers. It's like how do I know? When we poll, do you think Maduro is guilty of the crimes that the United States accused him of? Either I don't know or no is the number one. But if you ask boomers, it's overwhelming. Oh yes. He's guilty. He's a terrorist and a narcotics trafficker. Do you believe that Iran had nuclear weapons? We just did this, by the way. Only people who are older think that they had nuclear weapons. Like all the younger people are like, no, they're lying. Like, what are you talking about? Right. So if you're like a millennial or Gen X and down, it's BS, Yeah. I mean, I could just keep going on and on. The younger generation is more realistic. They're less idealistic. And by the way, that's a product of what you have given them. That's a product of what they have inherited from you after you inherited basically the real golden age. You inherited that and you hand them the shit age. That's what you handed them.
Where they're forcing the discernment.
They don't have the luxury of being idealistic. And when you're not idealistic, you can't believe myths.
Exactly.
Right? You don't have the luxury of believing fairy tales.
You believe in angles.
Yes. You believe in angles. Wants, motives, materialism, unfortunately.
A lot of it.
That's what you believe in. So, speaking of which, that's, to you boomers, a demon of your own design.
Yes, it is.
By the way. Which is a great place to say, don't forget to join the book club. Oh! Yes. Oh my God, we have to poll Thomas Massey's race. It's now or never. So we did a really good job. I think, let me just check and see real quick. What are we up to here? Let me show it on the screen. Because I know I got to get going here. And I got, I don't know why I'm being blown up like this today, Laura. I don't understand.
You're sexy.
But babe, make an appointment. Make an appointment. Like this last minute shit is like driving me nuts. Like I'm on a show and I'm being blown up.
You're supposed to call me to get to you.
I know. Don't even call me directly. You're abusing it. You're abusing your privileges. I don't mean to sound like a schmuck, but like I can't even take a call from my own kid if I let everyone have my number. It's true. Okay, let's go to it. The polling project. Okay, boom, went right there. Yo, we're doing really good. I'm not gonna, obviously, I don't expect to make this, right? But this one, why isn't this counting? Do you notice that? We need to look into this. It's not counting. But I do think that the Kentucky one is right, which means, we raised roughly 3. So, we're like a quarter of the way there. Look, guys, you know me. I'll pull the trigger if we get more. It's got to be more than this. But like, I'll pull the trigger on it. I mean, it costs me more to do it than that, guys. Like it costs me a lot more. Let me just say that. So yeah, do your best you can. Share it. I think that's probably the most interesting. Like I know the Cornyn-Paxton race is big, of course, but I really do think that the Kentucky race is even more important. You guys know, like I know Massey is a nice guy and everything. I personally have not been one of his defenders, like some others have, like Barnes, because I feel like sometimes he is no, not at all. It's like he's in what's the word I'm looking for? Opportunist isn't it. You know, like all of a sudden he cares about certain things when it is to put a thorn in Trump, but he never did it. And I'm not even talking about the Epstein stuff. I'm talking about like other things. Self-aggrandizing, I think. I don't know.
Oh, he likes to be grandiose.
He's well, let's just leave it as an opportunist, you know, a bit of an opportunist. But I understand the arguments against him, and I understand the president's frustrations with him. The problem is, and this is reality, I mean, this isn't opinion. What the president and those people didn't understand is that, one, how dire your situation is. You are in no position to be going after somebody like Thomas Massie to lose what's left of your libertarian voting bloc or your Maha voting bloc. You can't afford it because your coalition is disgustingly weak right now, despite the fake polls you keep putting out into the marketplace because people are sellouts. You don't have the votes to do it. So you have to have everyone you can muster. It's not the time to be going after people like that. And then secondly, is that the price was too high. So Miriam Adelson funding that PAC does not come for free. All right. We're in a war right now that Miriam Adelson wanted. Okay. So the price was too high. The price was too steep. And that's the bigger picture. And I always tend to and strive to look at the bigger picture and not to get like swept up in emotional nonsense, which is what so much of this has become. You know, the left used to be mocked by the right all the time, but falling prey to their emotional arguments and everything. That's all I've seen from the right in the last year. It's sad. They have completely lost their reason. And it's sad because they're here and this was avoidable. So I think there's a really important race because Massey's going to be outspent disgustingly. Ed Gowron, I have no loyalties to any of these people, so I will tell you the truth. I'm so glad that came out. Ed Gowron is a never Trumper. He never liked President Trump. This is a man who absolutely left the Republican Party after Donald Trump was nominated over Ted Cruz and didn't come back until Joe Biden was inaugurated as president. You think I am not joking. Secondly, the guy was a COVID cheerleader. His businesses were cheerleading for social distancing, cheerleading for masks. This dude is about as MAGA as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is a con, and the president has gotten, again, whispered in his ear, friggin' worm whatever from Lord of the Rings, with bullshit. They have this uncanny ability to find the most anti-Trump, never Trump, MAGA haters to get the president to back. This is about as humiliating as the endorsement of Bruce or Blakeman in New York over your actual friend, Elise Stefanik, who had to drop out. This guy then gets a nominee to run with as lieutenant governor with him, who, if they would have taken 2 seconds to look up, they would have saw he actually filed in New Hampshire to primary Donald Trump. I kid you not. It's humiliating. So even if you were going to replace Thomas Massie, to replace him with Ed is a backward step for MAGA. 100%. I don't give a damn that Donald Trump's endorsing him. Donald Trump's endorsements are leaving the party way worse. Way worse. These endorsements are, first of all, are going to be the topic of like inquiries soon. And it's sad. The president, at this point, it's gone on for so long. The president should know. There's like no excuse. Every Trump hater in the world gets the endorsement and gets the push as long as certain people control their PACs. It's the exact opposite of what Donald Trump ran on when he stood in Pennsylvania, in Gettysburg in 2016, in one of his final speeches, and laid out what MAGA really was all about. It's the exact opposite. The day he banned lobbyists from his administration. The hell happened to that? Gross. All right. So even again, you don't have, even if you had the luxury to replace him with Ed, it's a joke. This guy will be like Adam Kinzinger in 3 months. You think I'm kidding? He has, and I have every respect for what he did in the military, but he's definitely even from that generation where you're just institutionalized. They want innovation in SFAS. But that kind of dude, I'm telling you, he'll end up, he's Dan Crenshaw. He's Adam Kinzinger. That's where he's going. I hope I don't have to come back and tell you next year I told you so, but we'll see. And if I do, I'm coming back and telling you I told you so. It's like I'm throwing all these I told you so's in people's faces now. All right, Laura, I'm ready. You ready? All right. Again, so, do what you can. I'll put the link during the outro. I'll put the link in the chats. Share. You guys did a really good job, honestly. It was like a week. I mean, it was a really good last minute kind of thing. I took forever to put it up. And when I did finally put it up, it popped. It was red hot there for a second. All right. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and to share them far and wide. The best place to follow me, although I'm everywhere, is on Locals. It's right there, peoplespundit.locals.com. Peoplespundit.locals.com. You'll get the poll first there, guys. I'm going to work on that in the book this weekend. We'll have some polling up for you guys. And then don't forget the Instagram. It's pinned, for the love of God, to my ex. My daughter is going to mock me forever if I do not get more followers. She's like, you have over 300,000 followers on X. How is this happening? I don't know. I don't know. I guess I have an older following and I'm making fun of boomers all the time. Maybe that's not a good strategy for me, but whatever. You know what? Truth telling is always the best strategy, no matter what. Follow the gram at peoples_pundit. Jeez, God almighty. So bad. So bad. All right. I'll see you guys in a little bit on the outro. I'll put the link in there. Have a safe weekend. I hope you guys have a great weekend and a safe weekend. And I will see you, Locals. I'll see you in a few hours. You know the deal. Later. %, Palloway. Russ, it was a good comment, by the way. But Fetterman won't leave because he hates the McConnell wing of the party. He hates Ted Cruz and shit. Like, he hates all those guys. Trump and Hegseth interviews have been embarrassing. Humiliating. Honestly. Locals, we grabbed your comments. We're going to do a stream on your tip in a bit, okay? I just wanted to let you know that. Don't fret. We're going to go over them and do a road rage. Answer them. I know, right, Jerrier? Nobody wanted to listen. They probably can't even spell Mississippi. Nobody wanted to hear it. Georgia's not going to be their only problem. That's why you can't just rely on old white people. Deuces.